I'm glad that you wanted to talk today about small ice games and cross ice hockey, because I really think it's an absolute critical element to future success of not only kids' development in minor hockey, but also retention of kids in hockey. What's funny, I always hear people talking about how, uh, the kids aren't developing a hockey sense and creativity and things like that. And I said, well, it's one of the reasons is because we're robbing them of those opportunities. And I think one of the reasons is because, coaches get these kids at young ages and want to immediately start putting them into positions and telling them what their responsibilities are. And they're focusing on everything that is strategic, and instead of just letting the kids develop some of those key anticipatory sets and learning in some of those environments that actually create opportunities for them to develop that hockey sense that is going to really allow them to take their games to the next level. And so, if you ask any NHL hockey player what was the best development they ever had, they never talk about, those full ice practices where they stood in line and waited for their turn. They always talk about the times they spent playing 3-on-3 on the pond in a small area. And so I find it kind of humorous sometimes when we talk. Some people get in arguments as to whether or not we should even have cross ice hockey. I just think it's an absolute no-brainer. So when I moved to Colorado and became the director of Vail Junior Hockey, I took a look at some of the problems that they were currently facing with the loss of the kids who were dropping out of hockey, and they were dropping out at a young age. Now, we obviously had quite a bit of competition with skiing there, so being able to make the game fun for kids was incredibly important in order to retain them into hockey. And we had wonderful athletes that we were consistently losing to the ski academies and things like that. So there was a lot of competition out there to try and hold on to your athletes. Excuse me. So one of the things I took a look at and I realized early on was the fact that kids weren't having a lot of fun, because if a kid came into hockey and it was his first year of hockey, and he might only be 5 years old, but there was another kid who was 6 years old who had already played for a year, and now that kid would get the puck and he'd carry it all the way down the ice, and then the 5-year-old would be standing there, and by the time he got to the one end of the ice, the play had already gone back down the other end. And that kid had no fun at all, and those are the kids we were losing every single time. And so what I decided to do is I said, look, we got to keep these kids in a smaller area because they never get to touch the puck. And so, these ideas weren't new. These were things that we already knew. It was just a way of how we would actually present it to parents. And so what he did is I took the initiation program there, and we did strictly cross-ice hockey. And 3-on-3, and we had smaller nets. We had lightweight, smaller radius pucks because, their blades of their sticks are a lot shorter, so it made sense to do that. And then what we did is, because everything was done cross ice, we invited visiting organizations, and what we'd do is we'd have them bring them in for what we called a weekend jamboree, and it would just basically be one day a month that one association would host it. And during that time, we'd bring them in, and we'd have like an NHL draft, and we'd have like all these teams, and we mix all the kids together from the different associations. And sometimes we had to mix and match kids sometimes to try and even out the play. But it was basically 9-person teams and 3-on-3, and they would be playing 20 minutes at a time, and they'd play maybe 4 or 5 games in a day. And then the host association would always provide goodies and stuff like that, and the kids had an awesome time. And what we discovered is that, one, the kids were much more engaged, they had a much better time, and our retention numbers went up dramatically. And not only that, but the subsequent couple of years after doing that, our association started winning some tournaments once they got up into mites. And the primary reason was because our kids' skill development went through the roof. And, all the parents were coming to me at the start and like, oh no, our kid doesn't know about offsides, blah, blah, blah. And, it only took them like one practice to figure out offside once they got up to the next level. But what they didn't realize is just how much absolute development occurred, and the subsequent benefits that these kids had moving forward after that.